The California Science Center is a science-based museum in Los Angeles, California. It's a really awesome science museum with 3 stories dedicated to 4 different sections of science. First is ecosystems, next, world of life, third, creative world, and fourth, air and space. Also attached to the California Science Center is an IMAX theater which currently features Galapagos, and it tells the story about different animals on the Galapagos Islands in Ecuador. There's also a space for special exhibits, and these are like road shows, so currently the Dead Sea Scrolls are on display in the special exhibit section. I'm going to help you explore what the Science Center has to offer, beginning with ecosystems. At the beginning of the ecosystems section, there is an introductory video that has no words, just sounds, but it's powerful, and it gives a little description of what an ecosystem is and gives examples of various ecosystems in a smaller intro video. So for example, we see kelp forests, deep sea vents, deserts, poles, planet Earth, islands, rocky shores, and rivers. Each of these are various parts of what makes up the ecosystem, and they each give a description. So, for example, poles. It says, at the frozen ends of the Earth, species adapt to survive the cold, dry, howling polar winds. And that's just part of how ecosystems work. Another really interesting part about the ecosystems area is that it's broken up into different zones or rooms. So, for example, there's the rot room, which is quite frankly really gross, and if you have a queasy stomach, I don't suggest going in there because there are, in fact, larvae and decomposers eating like liver and body parts, and it's pretty gross, but it is part of how the ecosystem works, and without decomposers, we would have a lot of waste laying around. So they're really useful. There's also the river zone, which lets you play with how current works, how airflow works, and how the flow of water works. So in the far right picture, there are sparkly dots, and with wind you can kind of show like a ripple of what water looks like when it's being flown around. And then on the left, the sand, you can change the pattern of the sand to show how rivers flow. So they change their path based on the boundaries that they're given. So if you block off water, you can see how it pools up and creates its own path as well, which is really interesting. There's also the kelp forest, and the kelp forest is really neat because you get to see different plants and animals that you don't get to normally see because they're usually hiding away in the depths of the ocean. And so on the far left, it's a little bit difficult to see because this crab is doing an amazing job of blending in. But right here is this crab, and he's blending in with his surroundings, which is a big part of what ecosystems are. And same with here. These are little seahorse, and they are also blending in with their surroundings as a way of protecting themselves. Here's some more pictures from the kelp forest, and if you go, you can view this awesome, huge walk-in aquarium and see schools of fish swimming around, or even this cool little eel dude, and he likes to look through the glass at you. Another zone is the extreme zone. Extreme zone includes the polar and desert areas. So on the left is a picture of a polar ice wall, and you can actually touch that and feel how cold it is there. And on the right, an interesting part about the desert zone in the extreme zone is that it's actually really warm inside there. And there's real life lizards sitting on rocks, and there's actual vultures and roadrunners. So that's really neat. Another area is the world of life, and in the world of life area you can see different things that are living. So this is preserved fungi, and fungi live, or have lived in this case, and also you can see various different brains. So in the picture on the right is an octopus brain versus a human brain, and you can see how amazing it is that an octopus's brain is so much smaller than the human brain, which explains why we are such a smart species. Then there's also a really gross visual of all of the intestines inside our body as displayed on the picture on the left. And then there's a really neat show that I believe that children will really enjoy, and that is with Tess, the giant body robot. And she goes through different bodily functions as she's working out, and she's sort of open so you can see inside of her and what's moving, and she talks and she blinks and she moves, and it's really interactive and a cool show to see. I definitely recommend it. The next section is the creative world, and the creative world deals a lot with sound. So on the picture on the left is a big disc, and across the room, way across the room, is another disc directly facing it. If you talk into the very center of the disc, the person on the other side of the room can actually hear you talking. It's really amazing and absolutely bizarre the way it works, but it does. The one in the middle is making sound and vibration. So it's a giant rubber band on a pulley, and you spin it around and around and around, and the vibration actually makes sound, and that's really cool. And then the picture on the right just looks like this big weird coil thing, but it's a similar idea to the first picture, but one person stands on one side and another person stands on the other, and if you talk into it, the sound travels all the way around through the loops and comes out the other side, and you can talk to one another that way, which is really fun. Another part in the creative world is displayed on the picture on the left, and the cars are actually powered by solar panels, and the people outside of the display control where the light goes. So you can race one another by trying to control the light. So if you put the light directly onto the car, it will move because it's solar panels, and so it's pushed along by the light. The picture on the far right is of a piano, and what this little room is displaying is how amazing it is that we can create electronic sounds of real-life instruments. So we have an electric guitar, an electric piano, and an electric drum set. And all of them sound very, very similar to what the actual instruments sound like. The final section is the air and space section, and here we get to see giant planes hanging from the ceiling, real life Air Force planes, which I think is absolutely amazing. We get to see spacesuits, and unfortunately we don't get to touch them, but we do get to see how intricate they are and how thick and large they are, and just sort of imagine what it might be like to be inside of them, and see space telescopes. And this picture on the far right is actually the Hubble Space Telescope, which has been in space, as well as the other two pictures displaying more telescopes and satellites. Satellites. And it's really cool to see those things because we aren't scientists or astronauts, and therefore we don't really get to experience those. And without awesome places like the California Science Center, we never really would. The final thing in the air and space is a special exhibit, if you will, because you do have to pay a little bit more to see it, but it is the Endeavour. And the Endeavour, the California story, gives a little bit of background on what the Endeavour is, and there's actual live footage from the space shuttle and different artifacts that came from the space shuttle, and then you can actually go see the space shuttle and just admire how large it is and how grand it is, and see spots where rocks in space hit it, and just think about how amazing it is that such a huge vessel was up in space. So I hope you enjoyed watching this, and I hope that this makes you want to go visit the California Science Center because it's a really educational, really fun place to visit.